In case you haven't heard already, India's Modi arrives in Ukraine for talks with President Zelensky, weeks after Putin meeting. India acted and acts as an economic lifeline, no less, for Russia, ramping up purchases of its crude oil after countries around the world slapped economic sanctions on Moscow, isolating it economically. Also, India overtook China as the world's biggest importer of Russian oil last month. Well, some might say India's purchasing of oil from Russia are not indicative in any way and are of a wider political posture. And there's someone who could have thought, Subramanian Jaishankar, a Minister of External Affairs of India. India is a big oil consumer. It is a big oil importer because we do not have oil, he says. It is not like there is a political strategy to buy oil. There is an oil strategy to buy oil. There is a market strategy to buy oil, says Mr. Jaishankar. Sure, but why to come to Moscow for that in person? Modi's visit, the first by an Indian leader since Ukrainian independence, comes just weeks after he traveled to Moscow in a symbolic first overseas trip of his new term as a leader, where he held talks with Russian dictator Vladimir Putin that were criticized by Kiev. Of course, after talks concluded, India's Minister of External Affairs, Mr. Jaishankar, stressed that India is committed to helping end the war. We are very, very keen that this conflict should come to an end, Jaishankar said at a press briefing. But how do you do that very, very thing, Mr. Modi and Mr. Jaishankar? Despite repeatedly calling for a ceasefire and peace in Ukraine, New Delhi has refrained actually from calling a spade and condemning Russia's invasion for obvious reason. Of course, New Delhi seeks maintaining relations with Moscow, a major supplier of its arms. Mr. Modi once said that it is impossible to settle the conflict on the battlefield. Then what are these arms for, I wonder?
So this is now at an inflection point where India actually has to decide which side of the world they are actually in. Are they a truly Western ally, or are they an ally of Vladimir Putin? So Modi's visit to Moscow was not well received across the world, particularly by the liberal world, the Western world. So I think this is a visit where Modi is trying to make amendments to that, like make some amendments so that the Western world does not reject him as a world leader. I think that's what he's trying to do by being in Kyiv.
Well, this way or another, Ukraine throughout the war has sought to convince countries that maintain close relationship with Russia, such as India and China, to push Putin towards Kyiv's terms of peace. And of course, Zelensky hailed Modi's visit as historic and symbolic, that's what it is, and thanked India for its support of sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine over 2.5 years of war.
We have agreed on 4 documents between Ukraine and India during the historic visit of Prime Minister Modi. These are the medical sphere, this is cooperation in the agricultural sector, humanitarian relations, this is culture, and joint statements has been prepared on building a strategic partnership between our countries, trade between our countries and military technical cooperation. All this should be strengthened.
Your Excellency, despite the difficult circumstances, our bilateral relations are seeing good progress. And I can say that in such a tense environment, progress in our bilateral relations between India and Ukraine reflects the maturity of our bilateral relations.
And one more thing on the topic. Is there truth on a battlefield or not? That I don't know. But what I know for sure is that Ukraine never wanted to turn itself into a battlefield. We never invaded Russia. We never annexed Russia's land. It is Putin and Russia who are to blame that battlefield is the place where we in Ukraine are forced to be looking for truth these days. And what we surely have found out so far is our freedom on that battlefield. And that was and is worth fighting for sure.